you're with us here on The Big Story, and this is a week that is going to be dominated by those crucial judgments coming in from the Supreme Court. And on top of this edition of the news, we are quickly getting you this breaking update that the Ayodhya verdict is all set to be placed tomorrow. Yes, that's a breaking on your screens. The Supreme Court will deliver its verdict on a plea that was filed demanding Ram Mandir case to be transferred to a constitution bench. And that verdict is happening tomorrow at 2. 2 in the afternoon is when we will know whether the Supreme Court believes that there is merit in transferring the case to a constitution bench. Again, this is a case that Republic has tracked very closely for you here, getting you all versions and all sides of that story rhythm. As you join us and you break more details of that, tomorrow at 2 we will know what happens to the Ram Mandir.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So basically, this is so crucial because what's been happening on this is so crucial. This is the Ayodhya verdict. At 2 p.m. tomorrow, we are going to get a sense of what's been happening in this case. The issue of referring the Ram Mandir case to the Constitution bench is so crucial, Deepthi, because now the issue of referring the Ram Mandir case to the Constitution bench will be pronounced tomorrow by the Supreme Court. For the longest time, arguments were being given so that this verdict could come after the 2019 elections. Tomorrow, they have to clearly decide whether, in fact, this will be coming or not, whether in such a case, this verdict will be coming on time, whether, in fact, they will be forwarding this or not. Tomorrow, the three-judge bench of Justice Khanwilkar, the Chief Justice and Justice Chandrachud will be taking a call on the submissions made before them by Senior Advocate Rajiv Dhawan, by Kapil Sibal and others. Remember, they created this furor in the case and said, in this case of Ayodhya, this case should be heard by a constitution bench. There should be no order passed. Specifically, there should be no order passed before the elections. Even in December, when the case came up, there was huge furor in the case. Tomorrow, what we have to see is whether it will be a 5-judge bench that will be deciding in the Ayodhya Babri very crucial case, or whether indeed it will be this bench that will continue to hear the submission, a 3-judge bench or a 5-judge bench that will finally decide on the land dispute of Ayodhya. It's been pending for so long, but earlier also on the Ayodhya land dispute, a bunch of 13 petitions had taken on the top court. It was hearing a final hearing in the case over the 2.7-acre land dispute. It was claimed by both Hindus and Muslims. The date had been postponed. The petitions before the judge related to the 2010 verdict of the Allahabad High Court. At that time, the Allahabad High Court verdict had been so crucial in 2010, and we had been there when the Allahabad High Court verdict happened. It was on the title suit that had been pending for nearly 6 decades. The dispute before the court was whether 2.7 acres of disputed land on which Babri Masjid was constructed belongs to the Sunni Central Waqf Board or the Akhil Bharat Hindu Mahasabha, who claimed the land to be the birthplace of Hindu Lord Ram and thus entitled for the construction of a Ram temple. Now we have to see finally what will happen in the verdict, because we've seen the Sunni Waqf Board's proposal that's come out and the Shia Waqf Board, and all of them are giving out different versions here. But Wasim Rizvi is so clear of the Shia Waqf Board. He is clearly stating that it's time now that this land went to be made into a Hindu temple. We have to see what will happen. Tomorrow is going to be purely political again, because it's going to be a political fight by the Congress lawyers led by Kapil Sibal, who were trying to ensure that this verdict doesn't come out before 2019. We have to see where the Supreme Court will go with it.
Oh, yes. And, Rhythm, because you actually talk about that point, and I want to push that point a little further. Even as we have tracked the story, the nuances, the rhythm of that story. But at the end of it, I think, is a lot of politics that will get underway, whatever the Supreme Court might opine tomorrow.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And, remember, there was names, the Supreme Court at that time. There were so many cases in which we had heard this particular case. There were so many problems and issues that had come up in this case. Remember, Kapil Sibal had spoken up in the Babri case earlier. Later, it was said the Muslim parties had said he would not represent them later on because he had appeared and made submissions in December that had gone against what the Muslim parties wanted. He had clearly made submissions in which everybody felt he was talking not for the viewpoint of what they wanted. Let's also tell our viewers that there was ruckus in the court that broke out when a lawyer complained to the bench about how Rajiv Dhawan, one of the senior advocates, had compared the Hindus to the Taliban. So there were several arguments that were being made in the Ayodhya case that had caused a lot of passions to rise. At that time, the Chief Justice of India had also said, you may think what you may, but the court thinks it's completely inappropriate to use certain adjectives like you are. The lawyer had taken offense to senior advocate Rajiv Dhawan using the word Hindu Taliban in relation to raising of Babri Masjid on December 6, 1992. But even otherwise, Deepti, we've seen the kind of furor and the passion that rise with this. Let's tell our viewers once again, at 2 o'clock tomorrow, a very crucial verdict coming in from the top court on a bunch of 13 petitions over the 2.7-acre land dispute that is claimed by both Hindus and Muslims. The date is whether this case will be heard by this bench or whether it will go on to a 5-judge bench. The petitions before the judges relate to a 2010 verdict of the Allahabad High Court in the title suit that has been pending for nearly 6 decades. The dispute before the court was whether the 2.7 acres of disputed land belonged to the Sunni Central Waqf Board or the Akhil Bharat Hindu Mahasabha, who claimed the land to be the birthplace of Hindu Lord Ram and entitled for the construction of a Ram temple.
Okay, Zafar-e-Ab Jilani Saab, who's been fighting this case for the longest time, is also rhythm with us, and we'll take it first to him. Zafar-e-Ab Jilani Saab, the entire story is about faith versus law. And whichever way the Supreme Court opines on this big thing tomorrow, what possibly are we looking at, sir? Will you let it be treated just like a land dispute and not mix this with politics, with religion?
You see, tomorrow it is not fixed for judgment on the appeals, but tomorrow is fixed for order only on one legal question, that whether the observations made in para 82 of the judgment of Ismail Farooqi case given in 1994 was required to be reconsidered, and that related to whether the mosque is an essential requirement in Islam or not. That observation was made in the context of land acquisition proceedings, which were challenged in that case. So tomorrow there is going to be no decision on merits about these appeals, which are directed against the judgment of Allahabad High Court dated 30th of September 2010. So no question of Astha, etc. arises tomorrow. Tomorrow, purely constitutional question is going to be decided by the Honorable Supreme Court if tomorrow is fixed for orders, that whether that observation, which was made by a constitutional bench in 1994, required reconsideration or not. If it requires reconsideration, then it has to be referred to a larger bench. If it does not require reconsideration, then the court will say that now the hearing of the appeal will start on merits. So there is no question of any astha, etc. tomorrow.
So Jilani sir, what you're in effect saying is that there is not going to be any final verdict tomorrow. Is my reading right? Because the Supreme Court will be deciding whether to revisit the issue of whether namaz or prayers can be offered anywhere, or whether a mosque is an essential part of the practice of Islam and is needed for congregation and to pray. Are you already preempting something?
It was rightly understood, that this is going to be the verdict of the Supreme Court on this point. So whatever may be the verdict, that is not going to affect the judgment of the appeals, because that is not an issue in the appeals, in the suits. So this is a purely legal and constitutional question which is going to be decided by the Supreme Court tomorrow or day after, whenever the Supreme Court pronounces order. And that was heard up to 20th of July. Now, arguments on the appeal have yet to start after the decision of this legal question.
All right, Zafar-e-Ab Jilani Saab, that verdict is expected at 2 in the afternoon tomorrow, and we'll keep talking to you as we build up to that big verdict. For the moment, thank you. And I want to straight away take it to our colleague Nalini, who again, remember, has been getting us every update on every case that is coming in from the Supreme Court in this week. You know, Nalini, this has been a fascinating week. I think so many big news breaks coming in, so many big cases that are going to be settled. But this has been a bone of contention for a very, very long time, Nalini. What will happen tomorrow? Explain to our viewers, what are we looking at?
Well, Deepti, we've seen extended arguments when it comes to this particular case regarding the demolition of Babri Masjid. Now, over the course of the arguments, one of the main arguments that was being made by the Muslim bodies was because the Babri Masjid was demolished, whether or not the mosque was an integral part of Islam or not. Now, there is a 5-judge bench ruling of the Supreme Court already in the Ismail Farooqi case that actually says that mosque itself is not an integral part for anybody to follow the religion of Islam. So keeping that in mind is why this entire issue came up, whether or not a constitution bench should reconsider this decision of the Ismail Farooqi judgment on the fact that whether or not a mosque